Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon with his arms crossed behind his back. His eyes were fixed on the massive alien ship that hung in space like a dark moon. The vessel was unlike anything humanity had ever seen before. It was 3 times larger than their biggest battlecruiser, and covered in strange markings that seemed to glow with a pale blue light. The ship had arrived without warning 3 days ago, and every government on Earth had been scrambling to figure out what to do since Lieutenant Amy Stevens sat at the communications console with her headset pressed tight against her ear. She had been monitoring every signal coming from the alien vessel since it entered their solar system. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic keyboard as she worked to decode and translate the messages. The aliens called themselves the Kvaleen, and they had made their intentions very clear from the start. This was not a peaceful first contact mission. This was something else entirely. Jake walked over to the main viewing screen and stared at the image of the alien ship. His jaw was tight and a muscle in his cheek twitched slightly. He had been in the military for 15 years and had seen combat in 3 different conflicts. He thought he had seen everything that war could throw at him. But this was different. This was not a fight between nations or even between groups of humans. This was something that would define the future of the entire human race. Amy suddenly sat up straight in her chair. "Sir, we are receiving another transmission from the Kvaleen vessel. They are broadcasting on all frequencies again." She adjusted some controls and the translation software began to work. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical. It had been filtered through so many translation programs that it barely sounded alive anymore. The message was simple and direct. The Kvaleen had taken hostages from the Mars colony. 247 men, women, and children were now prisoners aboard their ship. The aliens wanted technology that humanity had developed over the last century. They wanted access to Earth's resources, including rare metals and water. They wanted humanity to hand over 3 orbital stations and allow the Kvaleen to establish a permanent base in the asteroid belt. In exchange, they promised to return the colonists alive and unharmed. Jake felt his blood run cold as he listened to the demands. He had friends on Mars. Good people who had volunteered to build a new life on the Red Planet. They were scientists and engineers and farmers. They were families with children who went to school and played in the biodomes. Now they were pawns in a game that none of them had asked to play. Amy looked up from her console with worry written all over her face. "Commander, the news networks on Earth are already covering this. There are protests forming in major cities. People are demanding that the government comply with the alien demands." She paused and bit her lip. "Sir, what are we going to do?" Before Jake could answer, the door to the bridge slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Lisa Hayes stepped through, and every person on the bridge immediately straightened up. Lisa was a veteran of 20 years and had earned her command through countless hours of hard work and dedication. She was known throughout the fleet as someone who never backed down from a fight and never left anyone behind. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform was spotless despite the long hours she had been working. Lisa walked directly to Jake and nodded at him. "Commander Morrison, I have just finished a video conference with the United Nations Security Council and the President of the United States." Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that Jake recognized immediately. It was the same tone she used right before giving orders that would send people into danger. And, "What is their decision, ma'am?" Jake asked, even though part of him already knew the answer. Lisa turned to face the view screen and the image of the alien ship. She was quiet for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts. Then she spoke in a voice that carried to every corner of the bridge. "The President has made it clear that the United States does not negotiate with terrorists. The Security Council agrees. We will not be bullied by these aliens no matter what threats they make." Amy gasped softly at her station. One of the junior officers near the weapons console looked shocked. But Jake felt something else entirely. He felt a grim sense of satisfaction. This was the right call. This was the only call that made sense. Lisa continued speaking. "The Kvaleen have studied humanity, but they do not understand us. They have probably done this same thing to dozens of other species across the galaxy. They arrive with their big ship and their threats, and they expect everyone to just hand over whatever they want. They think that because we value life, we will be weak. They think that because we care about our people, we will surrender without a fight." She turned away from the screen and looked at each member of the bridge crew in turn. Her eyes were hard, but there was something else there too. Pride maybe, or determination. They are about to learn that they have made a terrible mistake. We are going to show these aliens exactly how humans handle situations like this. We are going to show them that threatening our people is the worst decision they could possibly make. Jake felt a surge of adrenaline course through his body. What are your orders, Captain? Lisa allowed herself a small, cold smile. We are going to war, Commander. Contact the fleet. I want every ship we have in position within the hour. Call in the reserves. Get our allies on the line. We are going to hit that alien ship with everything we have got. Amy spoke up nervously. But Captain, what about the hostages? If we attack the ship, the Kvaleen might kill them. Lisa's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. Lieutenant, I understand your concern, but we cannot allow fear to control our decisions. If we give in to these demands today, then tomorrow another alien race will show up and do the same thing. And then another and another. We have to draw a line in the sand right here and right now. We have to show the galaxy that Earth cannot be threatened, that humanity cannot be bullied. She walked over to Amy's station and placed a hand on the young officer's shoulder. We are not going to let those people die. We have a plan. We have people who are very good at what they do. But we need to move fast and we need to move decisively. The Kvaleen expect us to negotiate for weeks while they make more demands. Instead, we are going to hit them before they even realize what is happening. Jake moved to the tactical display and began pulling up ship positions. How long do we give them to surrender, Captain? 1 hour, Lisa said flatly. We give them 1 hour to release our people and leave our solar system. After that, we open fire. The bridge was silent for a moment as everyone processed what was about to happen. This was it. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. They were either going to show strength or show weakness. There was no middle ground. Lisa walked back to the center of the bridge and stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Lieutenant Stevens, open a channel to the Kvaleen ship. I want to deliver our response personally. Amy's fingers flew over her controls. Channel open, Captain. They are receiving. Lisa took a deep breath and spoke clearly. Kvaleen vessel. This is Captain Lisa Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. You have taken our people and threatened our world. You have made demands that you expect us to meet out of fear. I am here to tell you that you have misunderstood who we are and what we stand for. Humanity does not negotiate with hostage takers. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. You have exactly 1 hour to release every single colonist unharmed and to vacate our solar system. If you do not comply, we will use every weapon at our disposal to destroy your ship. This is your only warning. She nodded at Amy, who cut the transmission. The bridge remained silent as everyone waited to see how the aliens would respond. Jake checked the countdown timer that had appeared on the main screen. 59 minutes and 30 seconds remained. Whatever happened next would echo through history for generations to come. Commander Zreth stood in the control center of the Kvaleen flagship, with his forearms folded across his chest. His dark eyes reflected the glow of dozens of monitors that showed various feeds from the planet below. Earth was a beautiful world covered in blue oceans and white clouds. It reminded him of 17 other planets his people had conquered using the exact same method. Take hostages and make demands. Simple and effective. It worked every single time. His second-in-command, Vren, approached from the sensor station with a data tablet in his clawed hands. Commander, we have completed our analysis of Earth's military capabilities. Their weapons technology is approximately 200 years behind our own. Their largest warships are primitive compared to our vessel. Based on all available data, they pose no significant threat to us. Zreth clicked his mandibles together in satisfaction. Excellent. And what is the status of the human response to our demands? Vren gestured toward one of the larger monitors. The planet is in chaos, Commander. Their news networks are broadcasting constant coverage of our arrival. There are protests in every major city. Some humans are demanding their government comply with our terms, while others are calling for military action. Their leadership appears divided and uncertain. Perfect, Zreth said as he moved closer to the screens. Division and uncertainty are exactly what we need. Within a few days, their resolve will crack. They will give us everything we want, and we will add Earth to our list of conquered worlds. Then we will move on to the next system and do this all over again. One of the junior officers at the communication station suddenly looked up with alarm. Commander, I am detecting unusual movement in Earth's orbit. Multiple vessels are breaking their standard patrol routes. Zreth waved a dismissive hand. Probably civilian ships fleeing to the outer colonies. Fear makes prey animals run. Sir, these are not civilian vessels. The officer's voice had taken on a nervous edge. I am reading military signatures. 17 warships have changed course and are heading in our direction. No, wait, the count is now 20. 23. Commander, they are still coming. Zreth felt a cold sensation in his chest. He moved quickly to the tactical display and studied the readouts. The officer was correct. Human warships were converging on their position from all across the solar system. They were forming what looked like an attack perimeter around the Kevaline flagship. Vren studied the display with growing concern. Commander, this formation is consistent with a pre-assault positioning. They appear to be preparing for combat. That is impossible, Zreth snapped. We hold their colonists. They would never risk the lives of their own people. This must be a bluff, a show of force meant to intimidate us into reducing our demands. Before Vren could respond, the communication system activated with a harsh tone. A human female appeared on the main view screen. She wore a dark military uniform with various insignia that Zreth did not recognize. Her expression was calm and cold. There was no fear in her eyes, no hesitation. She looked like someone who had made a decision and would not be swayed from it. Kevaline vessel, this is Captain Lisa Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. You have 1 hour to release our people unharmed and vacate our system. Zreth recovered from his initial surprise and moved to stand directly in front of the view screen. He drew himself up to his full height and spoke with all the authority he could muster. Captain Hayes, you seem to misunderstand your situation. We hold 247 of your colonists aboard this ship. Any aggressive action on your part will result in their immediate execution. Surely you do not wish to be responsible for the deaths of so many innocent lives. The human captain's expression did not change at all. Her voice remained steady and emotionless. You seem to misunderstand our situation, Commander. We do not negotiate with hostage takers. Not now, not ever. You have 59 minutes remaining. The screen went black as the human terminated the connection. Zreth stood frozen in place for several seconds. His mind raced as he tried to process what had just happened. In all his years of service and all the conquests he had participated in, no species had ever responded like this. They always negotiated. They always tried to talk their way out of the situation. They always valued the lives of their people above everything else. Vren moved to his side and spoke quietly. Commander, what are your orders? Zreth forced himself to think clearly. This is a bluff. It has to be. No species would sacrifice their own people so easily. Continue monitoring their fleet movements, but do not take any aggressive action. We will wait for them to contact us again with more reasonable terms. The minutes ticked by slowly. The human warships continued to move into position around the Kevaline flagship. Zreth watched the tactical display with increasing unease. The formation was perfect. Every ship was positioned to maximize firing angles while minimizing the risk of friendly fire. Whoever was commanding the human fleet knew exactly what they were doing. At the 30-minute mark, one of the sensor officers called out, Commander, I am detecting high-energy signatures from multiple human vessels. They are charging their weapon systems. Weapon systems, Zreth repeated. All of them. Yes, Commander. Every ship in their fleet is going to battle stations. I am also detecting the launch of smaller craft. They appear to be fighters and assault shuttles. Vren looked at Zreth with genuine fear in his eyes. Commander, they are not bluffing. They are actually preparing to attack us. Zreth felt panic rising in his chest but forced it down. Open a channel to the human captain. We need to make them understand the consequences of their actions. The communication officer worked quickly, and within moments Captain Hayes appeared on screen again. She was standing on what appeared to be the bridge of her warship. Behind her, Zreth could see other human officers moving quickly between stations. Red lights flashed in the background indicating that the ship was at full combat readiness. Captain Hayes, this is madness, Zreth said urgently. If you attack us, we will kill every hostage on this ship. Do you understand that? Every single one of them will die. Lisa Hayes tilted her head slightly. I understand perfectly, Commander. And I want you to understand something as well. You came to our home. You took our people. You made demands and expected us to comply out of fear. But you made one critical mistake. You assumed that humans think the same way you do. You assumed that we would choose safety over principle. You were wrong. You would sacrifice your own people. Zreth could not keep the disbelief out of his voice. We are not sacrificing anyone, Lisa said firmly. We are coming to get them. and we are going to go through you to do it. Zreth opened his mouth to respond, but the human captain cut the connection again. He turned to his tactical officer with desperation creeping into his voice. How long until our weapons can achieve target lock on their fleet? Our targeting systems need another 12 minutes to acquire multiple targets, Commander. But sir, even at full power, we cannot fight 23 warships simultaneously. Our shields will fail under that kind of sustained assault. Then prepare for evasive maneuvers, Zreth ordered, and send a message to the hostages. Tell them that if the humans attack, we will begin executing prisoners one by one until they cease fire. Vren grabbed Zreth's arm. Commander, that will only make them more determined. These humans are not like the other species we have encountered. They are not going to stop. Then what do you suggest? Zreth shouted. That we simply surrender. That we release the hostages and run away with nothing to show for our efforts. I suggest we leave this system immediately and never come back. Vren said quietly. I have been reviewing the historical data we collected on humanity. These people have fought wars among themselves for thousands of years. They have destroyed entire cities rather than surrender them to enemies. They have a saying on Earth. They say that they will give their lives for their freedom. I always thought it was just propaganda. But I think they actually mean it. Zreth looked around the control center at his crew. He saw fear on every face. His people were warriors, but they were also practical. They fought battles they could win. They conquered species that would submit. But these humans were different. These humans were willing to fight even when the odds were against them. Even when people they cared about were in danger. The countdown timer showed 15 minutes remaining. The human fleet had completed its formation, and every weapon was trained on the Kevaline flagship. Zreth made a decision that he knew would haunt him for the rest of his life. He had two choices. He could fight and probably die, or he could try one more time to make the humans understand what would happen if they attacked. He ordered the communication officer to open another channel. When Captain Hayes appeared on screen again, Zreth spoke with as much dignity as he could manage. Captain, I am asking you one final time to reconsider. If you attack this ship, innocent people will die. Their blood will be on your hands. Can you live with that? Lisa Hayes looked directly into the camera, and Zreth saw something in her eyes that chilled him to his core. It was not anger or hatred. It was absolute certainty. Commander Zreth, those people are our responsibility. We will bring them home. And if you harm even one of them, there will be nowhere in this galaxy where you can hide from us. You have 12 minutes. The screen went dark, and Zreth knew that humanity had just declared war. Chief Engineer Danny Price wiped the sweat from his forehead as he worked in the engine room of the USS Horizon. The heat was intense down here, even with the cooling systems running at maximum capacity. Around him, his team of engineers moved quickly between stations, checking readouts and adjusting controls. They had been working non-stop for the past 2 hours, preparing the ship for combat. Every system needed to be perfect because there would be no second chances once the shooting started. Lieutenant Karen Hughes called out from the main power console. Danny, we are at 115% capacity on the reactor. If we push any harder, we risk burning out the plasma couplers. Danny moved to her station and studied the energy distribution charts. The numbers were right at the edge of what the ship could handle. Any more power and they would start seeing system failures. But he also knew that Captain Hayes would need every ounce of energy they could provide when the battle began. Keep it at 115. If we need to go higher during the fight, then we will deal with the consequences later. Right now our priority is making sure we have enough power to punch through that alien ship's shields. Karen nodded, but Danny could see the worry in her eyes. She was young, and this was her first real combat situation. Most of the crew had never faced anything like this before. Training exercises and simulations were one thing. Actual war against an alien species was something else entirely. Danny placed a hand on her shoulder. We are going to be fine. Just keep your focus on the numbers and trust that everyone else is doing their job. On the bridge, Commander Jake Morrison stood at the tactical station reviewing the attack plan for what felt like the 100th time. Every ship in the fleet had specific orders. They would hit the Kevaline vessel from multiple angles simultaneously to overwhelm their defensive systems. While the warships kept the aliens busy, a team of Marines would board the ship and rescue the hostages. It was a solid plan, but Jake knew that even the best plans rarely survived first contact with the enemy. Amy Stevens adjusted her headset and spoke quietly. Commander, I am receiving status reports from all fleet elements. Everyone is in position and ready to engage on your order. Jake looked at the countdown timer. 8 minutes remained. He walked over to where Captain Hayes stood near the main view screen. Ma'am, the rescue team is ready to deploy. Major Chris Bennett reports that his squad is suited up and standing by in the launch bay. Lisa kept her eyes on the image of the alien ship. How many Marines are we sending in? 24, ma'am. 4 squads of 6. Major Bennett will lead the primary breach team while the other squads provide support and secure escape routes. We have mapped out the most likely location of the holding cells based on the ship's energy signatures. Most likely, Lisa repeated. What if we are wrong? Then the team will adapt and search the ship until they find our people. Jake said with more confidence than he felt. Bennett is the best we have. If anyone can pull this off, it is him. Lisa finally turned to look at Jake. I want you to understand something, Commander. When I gave the order to go to war, I knew exactly what I was asking of everyone on this ship and in this fleet. I am asking people to risk their lives. I am asking them to go into a situation where some of them might not come back. That weighs on me more than you can imagine. Jake met her gaze steadily. With respect, ma'am. Every person in this fleet volunteered for this. We all knew what we were signing up for when we joined the military. And more importantly, we all know what is at stake. If we back down now, then Earth becomes a target for every aggressive species out there. We have to draw the line somewhere. And this is as good a place as any. You sound very certain about that. I am certain, ma'am, because I know what kind of people we are. We do not abandon our own. We do not let bullies push us around. And we sure as hell do not negotiate with hostage takers. Jake allowed himself a small smile. Besides, those colonists on Mars are not just random people. They are us. They are humanity. And humanity looks after its own. Lisa nodded slowly. I chose well when I made you my second in command. Down in the launch bay, Major Chris Bennett gathered his Marines in a tight circle. They were all wearing heavy combat armor painted in matte black. Each suit was equipped with advanced life support systems and built-in weapons. The armor could withstand small arms fire and even some energy weapons. It also had a limited thruster pack for movement in zero gravity. Chris had personally checked every suit twice to make sure there were no malfunctions. Sergeant Kelly Nash stood at Chris's right side. She was holding her rifle across her chest and her face was calm behind the clear visor of her helmet. Kelly had been on Chris's team for 3 years, and he trusted her completely. She was tough smart and never hesitated when things got dangerous. Next to her stood Corporal Matt Turner and Private First Class Helen Brooks. All of them were veterans who had seen combat before. Chris activated his helmet speaker so everyone could hear him clearly. Listen up, people. We have been training for this kind of mission our entire careers. Hostage rescue under fire. We go in fast, we hit hard, and we get our people out. The aliens are going to be confused and panicking once the shooting starts. That gives us the advantage. But we cannot waste it. Every second counts. Matt Turner raised his hand. Rules of engagement, sir. Anything between you and those colonists is a target, Chris said firmly. We are not here to take prisoners. We are not here to be nice. We are here to bring our people home. If the aliens want to surrender, then they can do it after we have secured the hostages. Until then, anyone who gets in your way goes down. Clear. A chorus of affirmatives came back from the squad. Chris nodded in satisfaction. These were good people. They would do what needed to be done. He checked his weapon one more time and then looked up at the chronometer on the wall. 5 minutes remained. Back on the bridge, Amy suddenly sat up straight. Captain, I am receiving a transmission from the Kavaline ship. They say they are willing to negotiate a partial release of hostages if we agree to stand down. Lisa did not even hesitate. Ignore it. They are trying to buy time and sow doubt. Continue the countdown. Jake watched the tactical display as the human fleet maintained its perfect formation. Every ship was a weapon pointed at the heart of the alien vessel. He thought about all the people on those ships. Engineers like Danny, keeping the reactors running. Weapons officers preparing to fire. Pilots getting ready to launch fighters. Medical teams standing by to treat the wounded. Thousands of men and women all working together toward a single goal. Amy spoke again. Captain, the Kevaline are broadcasting on all frequencies now. They are threatening to execute 10 hostages immediately if we do not withdraw. Maintain position, Lisa ordered coldly. They are desperate. They know we are not bluffing anymore. The minutes continued to tick away. At the 2-minute mark, Danny called up from engineering. Bridge, this is Price. All systems are green. We are ready for combat operations. Acknowledged, Lisa replied. Stand by. At the 1-minute mark, Chris and his Marines boarded their assault shuttle. The pilot ran through the final pre-launch checks while the squad strapped into their acceleration seats. Chris could feel his heart pounding in his chest, but his hands were steady. This was what he had trained for. This was his moment to make a difference. Amy counted down the final seconds. 30 seconds, Captain. 20. 10. Lisa took a deep breath and spoke in a voice that rang through the bridge. All ships, this is Captain Hayes. Execute Operation Homecoming. I repeat, execute Operation Homecoming. Weapons free. Bring our people home. The countdown reached 0, and suddenly space erupted with light and fire. 23 human warships opened fire at exactly the same moment. Railguns spat metal slugs at incredible speeds. Laser batteries painted invisible lines of death across the void. Missile pods launched their payloads in carefully calculated spreads. Every weapon in the human arsenal focused on a single target. The alien ship's shields flared brilliant blue as they struggled to absorb the incoming fire. Energy rippled across the protective barrier like waves on a pond. For a few seconds it looked like the shields might hold. Then cracks began to appear. The sustained bombardment was simply too much. No defensive system could withstand that kind of concentrated firepower. On the Kevaline flagship, alarms screamed and lights flashed red. Zreth held onto his command chair as the ship shuddered under the assault. Return fire, he screamed, all batteries. But it was too late. The human attack had been perfectly coordinated. Before the Kevaline weapons could acquire targets, the shields failed completely. A railgun slug punched through the hull and tore into the port side of the ship. Explosions rippled through 3 decks. Atmosphere vented into space. The mighty alien vessel that had seemed so invincible just minutes before was suddenly crippled and helpless. Chris felt the shuttle launch, and acceleration pressed him back into his seat. Through the small viewport, he could see the battle raging around him. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. This was humanity at war, and it was a sight that would be remembered for generations. Major Chris Bennett felt the shuttle jolt as it broke away from the USS Horizon and accelerated toward the alien ship. Through his helmet display, he could see the tactical overlay showing the position of every friendly vessel and the massive Kevaline flagship that was their target. The alien ship was taking a beating from the human fleet, but it was still intact. That meant the hostages were still alive, and that meant the mission was still on. The shuttle pilot spoke over the comm system. Major, we have a clear approach vector, estimating 30 seconds to contact. Chris keyed his mic so his whole team could hear him. Final weapons check. Make sure your seals are tight. Once we breach that hull, we are going into a hostile environment. Stay together, stay focused, and remember the mission. We get our people, and we get out. Kelly Nash checked her rifle and gave Chris a thumbs up. The rest of the squad followed her lead. Every Marine was ready. They had trained for this scenario dozens of times in simulation, but this was real. Real bullets, real aliens, and real lives hanging in the balance. The shuttle shook violently as it passed through a debris field created by the ongoing battle. Pieces of alien armor plating bounced off the hull with metallic clangs. The pilot cursed but kept the craft steady. They were committed now. There was no turning back. Chris watched through the forward viewport as the alien ship grew larger and larger. Up close, it was even more intimidating than it had appeared on the screens. The hull was dark and scarred with strange symbols. Parts of it were still glowing from where human weapons had struck. Atmosphere was venting from at least 3 different breaches. The ship was dying, but it was not dead yet. The shuttle slammed into the hull with a heavy thud. Magnetic clamps engaged and locked them in place. The pilot gave Chris the signal. We are attached, Major. Cutting torches are active. You will have a breach in 90 seconds. Chris unbuckled from his seat and moved to the airlock at the front of the shuttle. His squad formed up behind him in standard breach formation. Kelly was at his left shoulder with Matt Turner on his right. Helen Brooks and the others covered the rear. Everyone had their weapons raised and ready. The cutting torches burned through the alien metal with white-hot intensity. Sparks flew in all directions, creating strange patterns in the zero-gravity environment. The hull was thick, but human technology was designed to cut through ship armor. After what felt like an eternity, the torch completed its circle, and a section of hull drifted free. Chris was the first through the breach. He activated his helmet lights and swept his rifle across the corridor beyond. The interior of the alien ship was dark and filled with smoke. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting everything in a red glow. The walls were made of some kind of composite material that felt cold even through his armored gloves. Kelly came through right behind him, followed by the rest of the squad. They moved quickly down the corridor using hand signals to communicate. Sound carried differently in the alien atmosphere, and they could not risk giving away their position too early. The first Cavaline guard appeared around a corner 20 meters ahead. The alien was tall and thin with 4 arms and dark skin that seemed to absorb light. It was carrying some kind of energy weapon, and its eyes widened in surprise when it saw the humans. Chris did not hesitate. He fired 3 quick bursts from his rifle, and the alien went down hard. The sound of gunfire echoed through the corridor. So much for stealth. Now every hostile on the ship would know they were here. More aliens appeared from side passages. The Marines laid down suppressing fire as they advanced. Kelly threw a flashbang grenade that detonated with a blinding light. The aliens fell back temporarily, giving the squad precious seconds to move forward. Chris checked his tactical display. According to their intelligence, the holding cells should be 2 levels below their current position. They found a service shaft that led downward. Matt went first, rappelling quickly on a cable. Chris covered him from above, watching for any signs of enemy movement. When Matt gave the all-clear signal, the rest of the squad followed. They descended into the lower levels of the ship, where the damage from the human attack was even more visible. Conduits sparked and leaked strange fluids. The deck plates were buckled in some places. Helen spotted a control panel on the wall and moved to examine it. "Major, this looks like a terminal. If I can access their systems, I might be able to locate the prisoners." "Do it fast," Chris ordered while scanning the corridor for threats. Helen pulled a data cable from her armor and plugged it into the alien terminal. Her visor displayed streams of code as her suit's computer worked to translate the Cavaline language and hack their systems. After several tense seconds, she nodded. "Got it. The holding cells are 30 meters that way. There are life signs. Multiple humans. They are alive." Chris felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Move out. Stay sharp." They ran through the damaged corridors following Helen's directions. The sounds of battle above them grew more distant, but Chris knew they were running out of time. The alien ship could not take much more punishment. If it suffered a catastrophic failure before they got the hostages out, then this whole mission would be for nothing. They rounded a final corner and found themselves facing a heavy blast door. Behind that door were the colonists they had come to save. But between the Marines and the door stood 5 Cavaline guards. The aliens raised their weapons, and Chris knew this was going to be the hardest fight yet. "Contact front," he shouted as he opened fire. The corridor erupted into chaos. Energy bolts from the alien weapons sizzled through the air, leaving trails of ionized gas. Human bullets tore through alien flesh. Kelly went low and fired from a kneeling position, taking down 1 guard. Matt threw himself against the wall and used a broken conduit as cover while he engaged another. Helen and the rest of the squad spread out to present multiple targets. One of the aliens managed to hit Private Brooks in the shoulder. Her armor held, but the impact spun her around. She grunted in pain, but stayed in the fight, firing one-handed. Chris saw her go down and felt anger surge through him. These aliens had taken human hostages. They had threatened to kill innocent people, and now they were shooting at his Marines. He charged forward, firing continuously. His rifle bucked against his shoulder as round after round found their targets. The Cavaline guards were tough, but they were not prepared for the sheer aggression of human soldiers fighting to protect their own. Within seconds, all 5 aliens lay dead or dying on the deck. Kelly moved to check on Helen while Chris approached the blast door. "Can we cut through this?" Matt examined the door's locking mechanism. "It will take time, Major. Maybe 5 minutes with our equipment." "We do not have 5 minutes." Chris looked at the terminal next to the door. "Helen, can you hack this?" Helen pushed herself up with Kelly's help. Her left arm hung limp, but she could still work with her right hand. "I can try, sir." She plugged her cable into the terminal and began working. Chris kept his rifle trained on the corridor they had just come through. At any moment, more aliens could appear. The rest of the squad formed a defensive perimeter. 30 seconds passed. A minute. Chris could hear muffled sounds from behind the door. People were shouting. They knew someone was out here. Finally, the door's locking mechanism disengaged with a heavy clunk. The blast door slid open, revealing a large holding area beyond. Inside were dozens of humans in civilian clothing. Men, women, and children all pressed together in the cramped space. Their faces showed fear and exhaustion, but also hope when they saw the Marines. A man near the front of the group stepped forward. He was middle-aged with gray hair and wore the jumpsuit of a Mars colonist. "Are you real? Please tell me you are real." Chris pulled off his helmet so they could see his face. "United States Marine Corps. We are here to take you home." The colonists erupted in cheers and tears. Some of them rushed forward to hug the Marines. Others simply collapsed in relief. Chris let them have their moment, but he knew they needed to move fast. "Listen to me," he called out over the noise. "We need to get you to the shuttles. Stay together, follow my orders, and we will get through this." "Can you walk? Is anyone seriously injured?" A woman holding a young child spoke up. "We have some people who are hurt. Nothing life-threatening, but they will need help moving. We will carry them if we have to." Chris turned to his squad. "Kelly, take point. Matt, you and your fire team get these people moving. Helen, you are with me on rear guard." They began moving the colonists out of the holding area and back toward the breach point. It was slow going with so many civilians, but everyone stayed calm. The colonists trusted the Marines to get them to safety, and the Marines were determined not to let them down. As they moved through the corridors, Chris could feel the ship shuddering around them. The human fleet was still pounding the alien vessel. They needed to hurry. He keyed his comm and contacted the shuttle pilot. "This is Bennett. We have the hostages. Prepare for immediate extraction." The pilot's voice came back tense but professional. "Roger that, Major, standing by." They were almost at the breach point when Chris heard footsteps behind them. He spun around to see a group of Kavaline soldiers rushing toward them. There were at least 10 of them, and they looked angry. Chris raised his rifle, but before he could fire, Kelly opened up from the front of the group. Her shots forced the aliens to take cover. "Go, go, go," Chris shouted. "Get them to the shuttle." The colonists ran for the breach while Chris and Helen held off the pursuing aliens. It was desperate fighting at close range. Chris emptied his rifle's magazine and then switched to his sidearm. Helen fought one-handed, but she did not give an inch. Together they bought enough time for the last of the colonists to reach safety. "Major, we are clear." Kelly's voice came through his helmet. "All hostages are aboard." Chris fired his last rounds and then turned to run. Helen was right behind him. They sprinted down the corridor as energy bolts zipped past them. Chris dove through the breach and hands grabbed him, pulling him into the shuttle. The airlock sealed behind them and he heard the magnetic clamps release. The shuttle lurched away from the dying alien ship and accelerated back toward the fleet. Chris sat on the deck breathing hard. Around him, the colonists were crying and hugging each other. His Marines were checking their equipment and treating their wounds. They had done it. Against all odds, they had brought these people home. Captain Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and watched as the final rescue shuttle returned to the fleet. The battle was over. The Kavaline flagship hung in space like a broke toy. Its engines were dead and its weapons were silent. Emergency pods scattered in all directions as the surviving alien crew abandoned ship. The great vessel that had threatened Earth just hours ago was now nothing more than a drifting hulk. Commander Jake Morrison approached with a tablet in his hands. "Captain, I have the final casualty report. All colonists are accounted for. 247 souls rescued with 0 fatalities among the hostages. On our side, we have 3 Marines with minor injuries and some damage to 4 of our ships. Nothing that cannot be repaired." Lisa felt tension she had been holding in her chest finally release. They had done it. They had saved their people and sent a message to the galaxy that Earth would not be bullied. "Excellent work, Commander. Pass my commendations to Major Bennett and his team. They performed admirably." Jake nodded. "They are already being called heroes, ma'am. The news networks on Earth are covering the rescue nonstop. People are celebrating in the streets." "Good." Lisa turned back to the view screen where the largest Kavaline escape pod was visible. "Open a channel to that pod. I want to speak with Commander Zreth." Amy Stevens worked her console, and within moments the alien commander's face appeared on screen. Zreth looked nothing like the confident leader who had made demands just a few hours earlier. His skin had paled to a sickly gray and his eyes showed defeat. Behind him, Lisa could see other Kavaleen huddled together in the cramped pod. "Commander Zreth," Lisa said calmly, "I trust you are unharmed." Zreth stared at her for a long moment before speaking. "How did you do it? How could you risk your people like that? Every strategic calculation we made said you would negotiate. Every piece of data we collected about your species indicated that you valued individual lives above all else. How could we have been so wrong?" Lisa leaned forward slightly. "You want to understand humans, Zreth? Here is your lesson. We do value life. We value it more than you can possibly imagine. But we also understand something that you clearly do not. If we had given in to your demands today, then tomorrow another alien race would show up and do the same thing. And then another and another. We would become a target for every bully and thief in the galaxy." She paused to let her words sink in. "You thought holding hostages would make us weak. You thought we would surrender our principles to save our people. Instead, it made us angry. And there is nothing more dangerous in this entire galaxy than humans who are fighting to protect their own." Zreth's voice was barely a whisper. "Your species is insane." "No," Lisa corrected him. "We are loyal. We are determined. And we will move heaven and earth to protect our own. You made a mistake when you came to our system, Commander. You assumed we would act like all the other species you have conquered. But we are not like them. We never will be." Jake stepped closer to the view screen. "How many worlds have you done this to, Zreth? How many species have you bullied into submission using this exact same method?" The alien commander looked away.
17 systems.
"Over the course of 20 years. It always worked, always. The hostages would cry and beg. Their governments would argue and threaten. But in the end, they all gave us what we wanted, because they were too afraid to fight." "Well, now you know better," Lisa said coldly. "You are going to limp back to whatever corner of space you came from, and you are going to tell every species you meet that Earth is off limits. Tell them that humans do not negotiate with hostage takers. Tell them exactly what happens when someone threatens our people." Zreth met her gaze again. "You have made enemies today, Captain. The Kavaleen will remember this defeat. Others will hear about it, and they will come to test your resolve." Lisa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let them come. Let the whole galaxy know what we are capable of. Because this was not just a rescue mission, Zreth. This was a declaration. Humanity is done being pushed around. We are done being afraid. From this day forward, anyone who threatens Earth or her people will face the consequences." She nodded to Amy, who cut the transmission. The escape pod's engines fired, and it began accelerating away from the battlefield. Within hours, it would be out of the solar system. Within days, the story of what happened here would spread across the galaxy. Jake looked at Lisa with respect. "Ma'am, do you really think other species will try to attack us after what happened today?" "Some will," Lisa admitted. "There are always those who think they can succeed where others failed. But most will think twice. Most will see what we did here and decide that Earth is not worth the trouble. That is all we can ask for." Down in the medical bay, Major Chris Bennett sat on an examination table while a doctor checked him for injuries. He was exhausted and sore, but otherwise fine. Around him, the other Marines from his squad were being treated. Helen Brooks had her arm in a sling, but she was smiling. They had completed the mission. They had brought everyone home. Sergeant Kelly Nash walked over and handed Chris a cup of coffee. "The colonists are asking to meet you, sir. They want to thank the team personally." Chris took a sip of the coffee and felt the warmth spread through his body. "Tell them we were just doing our job." "Any Marine would have done the same thing, maybe," Kelly said. "But we are the ones who actually did it. That means something." Before Chris could respond, the doors to the medical bay opened and a group of colonists walked in. They were cleaned up now and wearing borrowed uniforms from the Horizon's crew. At the front of the group was Lieutenant Paul Martinez. He was holding the hand of a small girl with dark hair and wide eyes. This was his daughter, Sophie. Paul approached Chris and snapped to attention. He was also a Marine, though he had been serving with the colony's security force. "Major Bennett, sir, I wanted to thank you and your team for what you did today. You saved my daughter's life. You saved all of our lives." Sophie looked up at Chris with the kind of trust that only children have. "My daddy said you are a hero." Chris felt his throat tighten. He knelt down so he was at eye level with the little girl. "Your daddy is the real hero, sweetheart. He kept everyone safe and calm while they were prisoners. We just came to bring you home. Sophie thought about this for a moment. Did you really fight aliens? I did, Chris admitted. Were you scared? Chris smiled. Yeah, I was scared. But being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you do what needs to be done even when you are afraid. Paul placed his hand on Chris's shoulder. Thank you, Major. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. The other colonists came forward one by one. Some shook hands. Some hugged the Marines. Others simply said thank you. Chris and his team accepted the gratitude with quiet dignity. They had not done this for glory or recognition. They had done it because it was right. Up on the bridge, Amy was monitoring communications from Earth. Captain, I am receiving messages from governments all over the planet. They are all offering congratulations and support. The Chinese ambassador wants to know if we need additional ships. The European Federation is offering medical supplies and personnel. Lisa felt a surge of pride. Acknowledge all messages and thank them for their support. Let them know that Earth stood together today. It was not just one nation or one fleet. It was all of humanity united against a common threat. Jake was reading reports on his tablet. MAM Intelligence is already analyzing the Kvaline ship. We are learning a lot about their technology. Apparently, they were not as advanced as they wanted us to believe. Their shields were strong, but their hull was actually weaker than ours in many places. They relied on intimidation instead of true strength, Lisa observed. That works fine against species who are afraid to fight back. But it fails completely against anyone willing to call their bluff. The hours passed and the fleet began to stand down from combat readiness. Engineers worked to repair the damaged ships. Medical teams treated the wounded. The rescued colonists were given quarters and food. Slowly, things returned to something approaching normal. But everyone knew that nothing would ever truly be the same again. Humanity had crossed a threshold today. They had proven themselves in battle against an alien threat. They had shown the galaxy that Earth was not defenseless. They had made a statement that would echo across the stars for generations to come. Lisa stood alone on the bridge late that night after most of the crew had gone to rest. She looked out at the stars and thought about what the future might hold. There would be other threats, other challenges, but she was confident that humanity would face them all the same way they had faced the Kvaline. With courage and determination and an absolute refusal to back down, Amy walked onto the bridge carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Lisa. I thought you might need this, Captain. You have been up for almost 30 hours. Thank you, Lieutenant. Lisa took a sip and sighed. I keep thinking about what Zreth said, about how we are insane. Are we, ma'am? Lisa smiled. Maybe a little, but there are worse things than being known as the crazy species that refuses to surrender. At least now everyone knows that taking humans hostage is a very bad idea. Do you think they will come back? The Kvaline, I mean. No, Lisa said with certainty. They learned their lesson today. They will find easier prey somewhere else in the galaxy. Species who will give in to their demands without a fight. That seems sad, Amy said quietly. That there are civilizations out there who have to lee.